Hello everybody, my name is Nathan, and I am the man with a cartoon obsession. It's about time that I follow through on those viewer-voted review polls, and I'm going to begin doing so by reviewing the magical anime that won the poll. Before we get into that though, I would greatly appreciate it if you could take just a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more animation-related content. If we could get to 500 subscribers by the end of the year, that would be fantastic. With all that out of the way, let's get into my anime review of Iroduku, The World in Colors. Iroduku, The World in Colors, or Iroduku Sekai no Ashitakara, is an original anime that was produced by PA Works, and it was licensed by Amazon Prime Video for streaming in the US. But Sentai Filmworks recently picked up the license for a home release, and they will also be dubbing the show, although no release date has been set at the time of this recording. It consists of 13 episodes spanning over the course of one season, and it ran from October 6, 2018 to December 29, 2018. The series follows Hitomi Tsukishiro, a mage who isn't fond of magic. As she grows older and starts to lose people she's close to, she also loses her ability to see colors. Now she literally only sees the world in black and white, which I learned is called achromatopsia. There's a new word for you all. Anyway, Hitomi is sent 60 years into the past by her grandmother, and she doesn't tell her why, just to meet up with her younger self. During Hitomi's time in the past, she meets new people, faces new challenges, and finds a love interest. I'll put this out there right now. I've said before that I don't really like time travel as a concept, but that doesn't mean that I can't enjoy shows that utilize it. Plus, this is magic-based, not science-based, so since this show is less realistic to begin with, time travel doesn't feel entirely out of place. That's not to say I think it's perfectly executed in this show, but I'll talk more about that later. I'm going to stray from my usual review format and talk about the visuals next. I think this show is absolutely gorgeous. The characters are well designed, the scenery is incredible, and I love the visual effects the magical elements have to offer. I'm not surprised that this show looks incredible because, as I mentioned earlier, it was done by PA Works, who have previously worked on shows like Angel Beats and Another, which are also anime that I will gladly praise for their visuals. Plus, they each feel like they have their own visual aesthetic to them, even if it's subtle. For example, Angel Beats has a number of scenes that look a little brighter than usual, and Another has a sort of gray tone about it. Iroduku is also aesthetically pleasing. I love colors, but I like the way this show uses the black and white aesthetic and blends it with the colors. There are plenty of scenes that are mostly in black and white, but with one area that's full of color, and a couple scenes that fit the reverse. They play around with that in the intro and outro a little bit too, especially the outro throughout a couple different episodes, but you might miss it if you're not looking out for it. Speaking of the intro and outro, both of those songs are beautiful too, as is the show's score. The opening theme is one of my favorite anime openings, and the ending theme grew on me a lot throughout the second watch through of the show. I don't want to make it seem like being pretty is the only thing this show has going for it, but from beginning to end, including the opening and closing credits, I just get lost in the show's beauty. I've gushed about that enough for now though, so let's get into the characters. We'll start with the protagonist Hitomi Tsukishiro, whom I mentioned is a mage, but she also hates magic. I don't want to spoil why that is, but it's understandable why she does. I also mentioned that she only sees in black and white. She hasn't seen colors for a long time, and she's also grown distant, just mainly keeping to herself. She also doesn't smile a whole lot for the first part of the series. If you couldn't tell based on my channel's aesthetic, I like colors and plenty of them. I couldn't imagine how depressing it would be to only see the world in black and white. The black and white aesthetic has its own beauty of course, but there's so much more beauty to behold in the world, and I can imagine how hard that is when your range of colors is extremely limited. After her grandmother sends her 60 years into the past to meet up with her younger self, she meets some people from her high school and joins the photography club, or the photography arts club, or the magic photography arts club. It has a few different names, but photography is their main activity. Naturally, Hitomi's friends are the members of that club. Yuito Aoi is Hitomi's love interest. He likes drawing, but he doesn't really like to show his drawings to other people. However, Hitomi loves his drawings, and that's because they're the only things that she can see in full color. Also, Yuito loves seeing Hitomi do magic. They're both people who keep to themselves most of the time, but they build a strong relationship. Plus, Yuito gives Hitomi some great insight.
色が少ない方が大事なものがよくわかるのかもしれない。
The club president, Shoyama Buki, is the most interested in photography, and he's also interested in Hitomi in the romantic sense. He also takes her under his wing by teaching her grayscale photography, since that's his specialty. Asagi Kazeno is also passionate about photography, especially taking pictures of animals, with rabbits being her specialty. She's the friendliest member of the group, and besides Yuito, she becomes Hitomi's closest friend. Kurumi Kawaii is a fun character. She likes to start rumors and is very interested in romantic gossip amongst the friend group. She also just likes messing around with her friends.
いい顔してるね。だってダメです。
Then there's Chigusa Fukasawa, the youngest member of the club. He's someone who doesn't really have a filter, and I enjoy that about him. As for his photography, he mostly takes pictures of girls, but he also focuses on the scenery. I think it's interesting. The final member of the group is, of course, Hitomi's grandmother, Kohaku Tsukishiro. She's my personal favorite. Kohaku is such a rascal. She always breaks something and has to write an apology letter to the school because of her magic. The best part about that is they just treat it like it's a regular part of the day. She's also constantly meddling in Hitomi's relationship with Yuito, not in a bad way. In fact, she helps move it along a little bit. Kohaku also tries to get her magic to a level where she would be able to send Hitomi back to the future. Unlike Hitomi, Kohaku loves magic and just wants to use it to make people happy. Also, her family runs a magic shop, and Kohaku's mom, dad, and grandma are all helpful to Hitomi during her stay. After all, she is a member of the family. All of these characters help Hitomi come out of her shell and grow as a person. I'll be honest, this show doesn't have the strongest characters. I really like Hitomi and Kohaku, but the rest of them are between okay and good. However, I don't get bored with them. Even though most of the characters aren't three-dimensional, they all have aspects to them that intrigue me, and they all have at least a couple of moments during the show that I enjoyed. Sticking with the characters, I talked a little about the relationship between Hitomi and Yuito, but that's not the only romantic subplot the show has to offer. In fact, every member of the Photography Arts Club either likes or is liked by someone else, except Kohaku. Most of these romantic elements are cliched, to be honest, and I'm not really invested in most of them, but that's mostly because they don't get as much attention as they need to really develop. It is kind of a romance anime, but the reason it was on the poll is because it's also a magical anime, and I love the use of magic in the show. There are a couple different varieties of magic. The obvious one would be the magical abilities that characters like Hitomi and Kohaku possess because they come from a family of mages. However, I mentioned that their family runs a magic shop, and at that shop they sell star sand, which anybody can use, even if they don't have magical abilities. The sand is created with the family's magical abilities, and there are many different types of star sand, and they all do different things. Magic is used for all sorts of reasons in this show, whether it be for entertainment, practicality, or cheering someone up. One nitpick I have about the magical element is that it's not really explained if the magical abilities Hitomi and her family gets are just hereditary, or if they're passed down through teaching. It's not something I need to know, but it's something I wouldn't mind knowing. As for my biggest complaint, you should have figured it out by now, it's the time travel. Look, time travel creates a paradox, and the show is self-aware about that. But the way the story is wrapped up, while I like some parts of it, is a bit of a mess because time travel is just a messy concept. Not to mention, this show didn't even have that whole you can't change anything in the timeline caveat. The timeline in the show just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me. That being said, it didn't ruin the show for me. Some parts of the time travel were executed well. Again, I liked that it was magic based in a magic show, so it didn't feel out of place. It was explained that it is a very difficult form of magic that not just anybody can perform, and the effects of Hitomi staying in the past too long added some tension to the story. Besides the time travel, the only other issues I have with the show are that some romantic loose ends weren't tied up, and it wasn't explicitly stated why Kohaku sent Hitomi back in time, but theories can be drawn. It's also not explicitly stated why Hitomi stopped seeing colors and was able to around Yuito, but that was heavily implied. And besides, I don't need to know everything explicitly, but some explanations wouldn't hurt. Despite those complaints, I really like Iroduku, and I'm so glad I finally got a chance to talk about it. I first watched the show in early 2019 and I enjoyed it, but when I was watching it again for this review, I realized that I forgot almost everything about it. I'm glad that happened though, because it was almost like I was watching this show for the first time again. And I really got to connect with Hitomi and her growth from a depressed, magic-loathing introvert to a bright, cheerful girl with plenty of friends and a better outlook on life. Of course, rediscovering how pretty this show was great too. I guess you could make a style over substance argument, but in my opinion, not only are the visuals and music beautiful, but the story is beautiful too. Hitomi coming out of her dull and dark world into a bright one, both literally and figuratively, is a touching and creatively executed story. While the show's style is top-notch, I'd say it has enough substance to back it up. Overall, I give Iroduku The World in Colors an 8 out of 10. I don't see or hear a lot of people talk about this anime, so I highly recommend you check this one out if you haven't already, and if you saw or heard anything in this review that intrigued you. Let's get some more eyes on this hidden gem. Thank you guys so much for watching the video. If you have any other cartoons, anime, or other animated works that you want me to talk about in the future, please let me know. After all, it's not my channel, it's our channel. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and feel free to check out my social media pages, audition for an outro, and join the official Cartoon Obsession Discord, the links for all of which are in the description below. Thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all next time.
I'm Izuku Midoriya, and thank you for watching Cartoon Obsession. Go beyond! Plus Ultra!